Whoa,
That's
a very cold stuff.
That's a hard intro right there.
Why were we not playing that at the beginning of every show we ever played? That was amazing version of that.
Yeah, we got to get on to Jared about the back timing there. So anyway, hey guys, welcome to the DFW Legacy Series page, the North Texas Vinyl page, and the SouthFM page. I have got some special guests with us that I'm sure everybody knows. It was kind of weird because GI is normally my business partner, but tonight we get to delve into your rock star past, buddy.
Wearing 2 hats tonight. Actually, 3 hats. NTX Vinyl, DFW Legacy Series, and SouthFM.
Plug.
Yeah, and then we've got Chad and Paco with us from SouthFM. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you spending this nice, warm Wednesday night with us.
I could be outside, but that's okay. Thanks.
Yeah, it's hopefully we'll have some ice to go sledding on, a little bit later this week. So, what are we doing here tonight? I think, if you're here, you kind of have an idea already. We are announcing, it's hard to believe, our 5th release in the DFW Legacy Series. Awesome. And this one I'm super excited for because it was one of the first albums I asked GI about doing as soon as we came up with this whole concept. And he kind of brushed me off and was like, no, we're not going to. And after prodding, and I'm glad to say that we're finally going to put out Drama Kids on a limited edition colored vinyl 2 LP set. This one is actually going to be a much smaller pressing than we've done on previous runs. So when we tell you limited edition on this one, there's not many that's going to be pressed on this one. This one is a passion project, we've said before, but a true passion project. This one is just basically, breaking even for the most part. So
absolutely.
GI, you want to take it over and kind of give all?
So for those who don't know, the DFW Legacy Series is a project Travis and I started with a couple of other close friends. And the whole concept is just bringing albums that we love from the Dallas, Fort Worth, Denton area to vinyl for the first time. Drama Kids has never been pressed to vinyl. All the other records we've done from Doosu, and Doosu is available for pre-order. Slow Roosevelt is still available for pre-order. And we put out albums by Edgewater and Miser already. None of those albums have ever been on vinyl until we did this. And so that was the whole idea. We want to preserve the music. We want to make sure that it's not just stuck on your phones for those who actually want to drop the needle on it. So it's all run through my little record shop, which is called NTX Vinyl up in the Louisville area. If you're familiar with Dallas, Fort Worth, that's something NTX Vinyl, something I've been doing as a kind of a side project and a passion for the last year and a half. So Drama Kids is here. Like Travis already mentioned, limited edition. The plan is to do 100 copies. If we get enough demand, we might do 200. We'll see. But if you go to DFWLegacySeries.com right now, you can pre-order it. It's $44.99. It's a double LP, white and blue marble. We're doing colored, full color printed inner sleeves. So it's not a gatefold. It's a slim line, but it's got inner sleeves. We're redoing the artwork on it. So we're going to add as much cool stuff as we can. When you're only printing 100 or something, or even 200 of a record, it's not cheap. So that's why it costs $44.99. We'd love to sell this to you for $20, but we'd lose a lot of money doing that. So we'll put the price point right where it needs to be to bring this thing to life. I promise you, we want it as badly as you. So that's what we're doing as far as Drama Kids is concerned. We're going to talk all about tonight. Travis is going to walk us through the history, but before we do that, that's what I've been up to in regards to NTX Vinyl. Why don't we go around the horn? Chad, if you want to go first, give everyone up real quick. What have you been up to? Where are you at? What's going on, man?
I've been bartending for a very, very, very long time. Doing a little bit of music on the side. Paco and I and some of the other band members of SouthFM have been doing some slow work on maybe making a new record. We'll see what happens. Got slowed down a little bit, but it sounds awesome. Yeah, that's about it, really.
Pandemic time is the perfect writing time. We've had a year.
I fall asleep surrounding myself by all these instruments that I don't even know who owns these. I don't know.
The pawn shop down the street. Did you just go pick those up?
Yeah, I just basically brought him back.
Yeah.
So, nah, man, it's been good. Just a little bit at a time, and I'm really excited about for us to do this final release. And yeah, I don't have a whole lot. Sorry.
Paco, what about you? What have you been up to the last few years?
Let's see. We Chad and myself and a former Dave Schaefer and two new gentlemen that were not in any original lineups from SouthFM have been playing with us. And we actually have been spending quite a bit of time. I could say not in the last year. I'd say we've sort of been on a SouthFM hiatus, but we did give a good 2 years of our life really working on demos, and we have a ridiculous amount of songs stacked up. So we just need to make some decisions and move forward with that. But other than that, I've been working with my band Heart of the City, which is an Austin-based band, and then just doing a lot of co-writing and just making my way through the pandemic by trying to figure out other ways to bring in income outside of live shows. So I still haven't gone back. I did play a few live shows at the tail end of last year, but I just decided that I was going to go ahead and just stay in. Yeah. And find other ways to make a living. And so songwriting has been my main thing, man. I've really been liking it, though.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I'm really, and GI and I have talked about this, I'm really looking forward to those first shows back. I mean, like the full-on rock shows back where, people can lose their minds again. I think the energy in those rooms is going to be amazing. So definitely looking forward to that. Well, let's dive in a little bit. So, Paco, I'll start with you. Why don't you kind of give us a background of the early days of the band? I mean, how did the band form? What, how did you guys kind of get, let's kind of start there, but then get us to the Drama Kids lineup.
I really got it. The biggest thing that brought us together was our original drummer for SouthFM, Spencer Eastep. He was my drummer in my rock band through high school and one of my good friends. And he started playing in a band called Jedi Mojo, which involved Chad and GI, and they had already kind of stepped their foot down in the Deep Ellum area. And I met up with him, and he said, "Hey, this is the band. Come down and see us." I ended up playing opening for them down at Fat Ted's, which I don't even know the name of what it is now, but it was right there on the corner of Crowdis and Commerce. And so anyway, we did a show together, and I don't know, it was just like a match. They loved what I did as a vocalist. I loved that they had their stuff together as a band, and GI was the band mom, and he was like, "Hey man, I got." You were a band mom, though. Really, though. I mean,
mom for sure.
But he was like, "Yeah, man, I love your songs. We got some songs. Let's work on some demos. Let's work it up." So Spencer was sort of the thing that brought it together, and then GI was, right off the bat, it's like, "Let's get us in the trees. Let's go to Curtain Club. Let's go play this music. Let's start getting out there." And that's really what kind of started it up. And we fell in love with playing in the Deep Ellum and the music scene. And I think the biggest break for us was Wednesday night Acoustic Chaos down at the Curtain Club and or Liquid Lounge. It would go back and forth, but Tony Edwards would host that. So would Chaz from the local show. And, we got to make friends with those people down there. And that was a beautiful, loving family at Curtain Club that accepted us and loved us back. And so we started doing every Wednesday night that we could. Mm-hmm. And that pretty much led to bigger things. Believe it or not, Acoustic Chaos open mic nights. That takes you places.
GI, what do you remember about those early days playing, the Acoustic Chaos shows and whatnot with the camaraderie of the band?
Yeah, it was a big move because Chad and Paco and I were all living with a couple other friends in Carrollton, which is, 30 minutes north of downtown Dallas. So not that far, but far enough when you're in downtown 5 nights a week like we were. So when we made the decision to actually move downtown, and a couple of us together and then and just congregate in that area, that really changed everything, because then it was like, okay, now we can really do this. So then we started hosting Acoustic Chaos, and we met everybody in the scene, and that's really what turned. That was really the turning point for us, because up until that point, we'd played a few gigs, but they weren't on weekends. They weren't at the best clubs in downtown. They were at the smaller clubs like Fat Ted's and things like that, where it was like really a restaurant, But when we connected with the Curtain Club and with all the great people there that Paco was already mentioning, that was really the biggest turning point in my mind, because then it was like, okay, now we knew the people that we needed to know to get the gigs. And of course, and then we were meeting so many people that would come see us that eventually ended up being our friends and fans. And so I think, honestly, just that location was huge. I mean, we had to have something going on musically, of course, too. But when I think back, it was like one big turning point was like, okay, we're moving downtown because we're going to really do this, because it was just too much trying to live out in the suburbs and commuting back and forth on weeknights when we were all working and stuff like that. It was tough. So that was a big turning point for me.
Yeah, I think that was a big part of it. The move, it was a decision as a whole, as several band members. We lived together in a house, and it was, hey, we need to be down there where the energy is, where the action is, where everybody's doing things. And so I think that move down, to the Deep Ellum area was a big part of getting to know people and making a bigger impact with our band by just being down there all the time.
Awesome. Well, at the time I was working in the radio industry. I worked for The Edge for many, many years. And I kind of remember back in that time, you guys being a big part of the Buzz Oven family. I mean, I remember a lot of the Buzz Oven shows and Aiden's concept and with the Deuces of the world and Caulk and Slow Roosevelt and all those bands. And I kind of remember you guys and winning the Buzz Oven Battle of the Bands. I mean, where would that kind of put you guys? Do you feel like that puts you on the map as far as getting people to notice you, getting people to, take you from just the Wednesday night acoustic chaos shows to being a full-on rock band that can play more than just the acoustic shows?
I think it took us mentally I think it put us on the map mentally. Yeah, honestly, I mean that was the moment that all of us felt like we had a greater chance of doing something bigger.
Yeah, I think a big part of that too is I agree with Chad. I think a lot of that is, we're doing our own promotion and getting out there on the streets. This was before we were really, taking a hold of internet and using that as a tool for spreading word about our shows. So we were standing on street corners with megaphones, dressing as clowns and doing everything we could do to get people to notice and take our flyer.
Hold on.
Yeah, I did it too.
I distinctly remember myself dressed as a clown. Were you dressed as a clown too? More power to you.
No, I guess I wasn't dressed as a clown,
no,
but
yeah.
I held the Jesus Loves South FM sign.
Yes, so that was the deal. So I remember two things in regards to Grassroots. This was how we were trying to get gigs, and this was right when Buzz Oven was happening. In fact, I remember I was standing on the corner of Crowdis and Main, right in front of Curtain Club, in the front of the patio. So the whole patio's packed. This is a Friday night. I'm in a full clown costume with face paint, a nose, and a wig. And I have a sign that we made that said Jesus Loves South FM, because down in Deep Ellum those days, there was people on the corners doing that type of thing, talking about trying to get you to convert to religion and things like that. And so we're like, well, why don't we do that? So I'm standing there dressed like a clown with this stand, and Aiden walks up to me because we had just, I think, won the Buzz Oven thing or whatever. And he was like, oh my gosh, this is the band that we're going to have on Buzz Oven. we would do anything. We were desperate to be heard, for sure.
Yeah, but
somebody dragging your cross around, but I don't know if that was us. That was around the same time.
Yeah, somebody would drag a cross around down Deep Ellum. That was the thing. Yeah,
we were inspired by it.
But I would say, yeah, definitely with Buzz Oven, because the magic about Buzz Oven is that somebody else is doing the work. Somebody else said, hey, I care enough to help you do the legwork that you have to do yourself. And not only that, but Aiden was getting Coca-Cola involved, and Aiden was getting high school kids that are the generation that's going to be coming to Deep Elements, coming to live shows and making music scene work. So the brilliance of Buzz Oven was taking these bands that were really trying to get out there and saying, hey, I have this platform. If you can bring enough people to the show, if enough, then I can take these however many CDs, and they're going to go out to this entire market where kids are going to take it to other kids, and your music is going to get out there. And I think that definitely was a stepping stone in helping us, get a bigger name for ourselves in town.
Okay, so I've heard a story, and I need you to either say confirm or say no, it didn't happen. And if it did happen, I want to know the details. So part of winning the Buzz Oven showcase there was a giant house party at one of y'all's houses where you invited everyone to come with, like trying to seed the crowd to make sure that you won it.
Oh, making sure we seated the crowd. Yeah, because it was an audience vote. It was like, I don't remember exactly how, but it was essentially a battle of the bands. And there was kind of like whoever was the judges, which was Aiden, who founded Buzz Oven, and his team voted musically. But then there was like the audience reaction vote. And so we were like, well, we got to do everything we can to get a leg up. And so we invited all our friends and threw a keg party at our house, which was just down the road, Lower Greenville. So not right in Deep Ellum, but close enough. And so that was our pitch. Like, hey, we're having a keg party. Oh, by the way, come a little bit early and stop by trees. And that's how we ended up, probably getting another 50 people or whatever. Because of those days, you didn't draw many people. No one knew who we were. So it was only your friends who came to see you.
But hey, whatever works.
Yeah, it was a date. It was
we definitely had barbecue. I do remember that.
Oh yeah, it was a daytime show, so there was like a whole evening of. There was still sunlight when we got out of there, and it was fajitas out on the front deck, and homemade guacamole and rice and all the good stuff. Man, everybody had a really good time. I remember that day.
I will say, and I'm jumping ahead in the time frame, but as you talk about the grassroots marketing, and the one thing that you guys did, and again, being a marketing person at the Edge at the time, that I absolutely loved, and it made me chuckle, were the stickers you guys made that said Zach Crane loves South FM. So knowing that Zach Crane didn't like anything, I mean, it was, and I was telling GI, we at the Edge had our own relationships with the Observer and all the different papers, because when we put on Edge Fest, it was they'd always want review tickets, but it was the worst show they'd ever seen, and it was terrible. And so I thought that was hysterical when you guys put those.
Well, it was actually a show with Edgewater and Slow Roosevelt that we had booked, and Zach Crane had given a review on that show and had said, nothing. It's something about not bothering showing up early, like because of the early bands, and it was, obviously, we're reading the Observer because that's our connection to everything we're doing, because of, like I said, these are times before internet was really, rolling, and the Observer was our main source for seeing what was in every club and who was playing. So he had said that, and so, it was like, okay, what do we do? How should we do this? It was actually GI's brilliant idea, because he was our graphic designer. And so he was like, let's make this sticker. And it was a Deep Ellum Arts Festival that we just decided to litter the entire town with our stickers.
Awesome. Well, hey, I'm going to bring in our first special guest. Oh,
yeah, I was going to say, special guest coming up. But the other thing really quickly that Buzz Oven did, which is going to segue right into their special guest, is when you won Buzz Oven, you got studio time. That was a big deal, because we couldn't afford to be in a real studio and hadn't really been in a real studio very much. When you won Buzz Oven, you got to record with Alex Gerst.
Oh, man. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, so we got to go record 2 songs, which were My Sanity and Thursday Night. So the initial tracks from those ended up being used. I think some of it, we probably re-recorded most of it for what you heard on the Drama Kids release. But that got us in the studio with Alex, and Alex was right in the middle of working with Slow Roosevelt and working with what ended up being Brando Records, which is where you're going, Travis.
Yeah. So we're going to bring in Mike Swinford,
hey.
who, if you liked music back in the 90s or the 2000s in the Deep Ellum or Dallas music scene, there is a 98.9% chance Swin had something to do with one of those bands. Swin and his partner Paul Nugent were the ones that everybody wanted to manage them and get them, because they knew how it worked. They knew how to get bands on the radio. They knew how to get bands signed. I worked with Swin on numerous projects, going back with Nick and Deep Blue and all the way through you guys. And so, Swin, it is great to see you. It's great to catch up with you.
It's great to see you guys.
And I, when GI told me that you were willing to do this, I was like, oh, fantastic, because I've got questions for you on South FM and knowing that you and I go way back too. So as we're kind of, and you're listening and talking about these guys, how did South FM first get on your radar? How did you find out about them? Where did you hear about them? What were your initial thoughts?
Paco, you ready for that story?
Yeah, let's You want me to tell it? You tell it.
So
Let's
it's
go.
a really good story. We were knee deep in everything we were working back then. Shoot, I don't even remember what year it was, but the 90s was good to us. So many great bands in the Dallas-Fort Worth scene that we worked with. And, while we were working on all those bands, I got an addiction to Starbucks. And so I had to have my morning cafe mocha and cranberry orange scone. And so I would go to, where was it? It was off like Aldelia.
Skillman, Royal and Abrams.
Royal and Abrams, up that way, right? So I was going to that one, not too far from where I lived, and we'd go in every morning and get it. And, after some time, Paco, started talking to me and all like that. He was my barista thing, making those delicious mochas. And he got the nerve at one point. I can't remember, Paco. Did you know who I was at the time, or did you just knew that
I remember Paco telling me, because we were at Acoustic Chaos one night, which with Paul and with Zaida, and it was like, hey, I think that's the guy I served coffee to. And I said, that's the dude from Rainmaker that managed the Knicks. Something. He's like, are you shitting me? I've been serving him coffee for months. It was great.
That's awesome. So I remember, we started getting friendly and chatting and everything. And, he was like, hey, I'm in a band and, I'd love to give you demos sometime. And then I think it was 5 months later, they actually handed me, demos. I'm assuming it was on a CD. I think we were well past cassettes.
That's lead singer time for you, son.
That is lead singer time. But so he finally, gave me a CD and I started listening to it. And I do remember the first song that drew me in. People would probably think that, oh, well, it's Dear Claudia. It's what became the single. Not at all. It was Driving. So Driving was the song that nailed me. I was just like, dude, this song is so good. I listened to it over and over and over and everything. And, then at some point I was listening to it and finally, played it for Paul. And I was like, dude, there's this young band, this guy, Paco, he gave me his demo and all like that. Why don't you start living with it? And sometime around there, I did go out to a show, probably at the Curtain Club and everything. And obviously I love the show. It was way different than the demos. The demos were very raw and everything. But that's sort of how the initial connection. It was a cranberry orange scone at Starbucks caused it all.
So you've lived with the demo, you saw the show. What's kind of that first band meeting like when you sit down with the guys? Is it, we've got this grand plan that we want to do, or was it go away, go write a bunch of songs, come back to me, and then kind of go? What is it you're thinking about?
It sounds like you've done that before, Travis.
Yeah, totally not the Swin and Nugent style. Our style is to implode your band at day one. Tell you all the things we don't like about your songs and everything. And I'm pretty sure that first one, if Paul was there, it was dissecting what would become Dear Claudia, because I do remember that. I do remember listening to that demo and listening to this really horrible 7-minute song, but it had this one little part in it that was really great. Right. And that really was, I guess, I don't even remember. Was it the chorus or was it just verse?
It was the chorus.
I don't remember which part.
It was technically, to dive into the artisticness of it, it was technically part one. And then the rest of everything that was just
right. Then it just went into like noise and jamming.
It was all like part two. Yeah.
Right. And so, really like Paul's on. You see
I like that.
Oh yeah, I see him.
Well, Claudia wasn't recorded yet, but that basis of it was.
Yeah.
And then so I do remember that, first meeting, it's all the way deep into like Paul's like, dude, you got to take this little sliver out of this song and then go write a song around that. So, I mean, look, everyone was super green back then, right? Fairly new together, doing demos and everything. So they had a lot of work to do as a band. But, between their willingness to work and then they had a really great relationship with Alex Gerst. And I think that Alex probably had a whole lot to do with helping shape them as they were trying to shape themselves as well.
So that leads me to the next question is your initial tracking and some of the rough ideas. And then GI, you had mentioned someone to me a while back named Joe. So
yeah, so there were like several different tracks going on at once because
someone got a fire going on in their house or apartment.
Some feedback or something. There were a couple different things. So we were talking to Swin and Paul, Rainmaker Artists. We had one buzz oven, which means we were recording with Alex. But this whole time and months before that, we were trying to get our own album going already, not knowing if any of that was going to pan out. So we had a bunch of demos that we were doing with a friend of ours, a guy named Joe Willix. And so the versions that you hear on Drama Kids of Driving, of As You Dream, because it was you, all the softer kind of songs that didn't have a lot of drums and instrumentation, the kind of stripped down songs, those were all done with a friend of ours. And we took those tracks to Alex and we added on to them and probably maybe redid vocals and things. But the basis of those, we had kind of all done on our own. Paco and I did most of that. Chad, I think you were probably involved a little bit here and there, but that was just us messing around with a friend. And it ended up being a pretty important part of the album because that's probably the version of Driving you heard initially, Swim, was that early version. That ended up being the take. We never re-recorded it. I remember we could never recapture that.
To me, that's it obviously wasn't a song that, was going to become a single, but it's one of those timeless songs, man. You hear it anytime. Gives me chills every time. I love it. It's a great song.
I listened to it, and I was telling GI, I listened to the album about an hour before he came on, and that song comes on. It fit in today. I mean, it could go right on a radio station today and sound just as current. So I definitely agree. Paul had the comment, and Swin just said it is you guys, and you wrote a timeless hook, and you wrote a timeless song, and that's something to be celebrated for sure.
I think the biggest thing is especially like we had a great team. I think that was the best thing. We were lucky enough to be a young band, and we got Paul and Swin involved, and we had the Buzz Oven thing happen, and then we gained this interest from this amazing team of this amazing network of people that believed in us, and really helped shape us. Like Dear Claudia, was not what, did not begin what it ended up being. And if it wasn't for some really great feedback and some steering of a direction to help us find what we needed to find, so anyway.
Well, let's kind of jump forward a little bit. And you're in the studio, you're recording Drama Kids with Alex Gerst. Kind of, what was that like? I mean, is that doing full album? Was it pieced together? Was it you already had these tracks over here and now you're doing that? Or was it we're going in, we're redoing everything, and this is what we're going to do for the album?
Other than those few tracks, I mean, we were starting from scratch. Again, we had My Sanity and Thursday Night. We had sketches of those that put out on the Buzz Oven. That really helped us. And that gave us the studio experience and gave us the relationship with Alex. And this is funny because if I think back to when we launched the Slow Row record, when we were talking with those guys, the Slow Row guys were wrapping up the recording of that album and building Studio A. We were in the little Studio B, which was about the size of a closet at Indian Trail Studios. And so finally we were like, oh, Slow Row's done and the studio's built. So we got to go over to the big studio, which wasn't much bigger than a closet. And for us, it was like amazing just to be in a real studio and actually have someone who was wearing somewhat of a producer hat. And again, I like Paco said about what Rainmaker did for us. Alex played that role on the producer side, just giving us any sort of direction and feedback because we were so green, like every band is going in to record the first album. So that's what I remember. I just remember being like glassy-eyed that I'm in a real studio with a real band, with a real producer, making something real. Like that was my biggest That, and I remember lots of long drive because it was in Crum, Texas, which is
Yeah.
an hour and a half from Dallas. And so we would get off work at 4 or 5 o'clock, get to the studio at 7 o'clock if we're lucky with traffic, record till midnight, get home at 2 a.m. Probably for a couple months sporadically, maybe a month or two. So it was a lot of work, but I just remember being an amazing experience because we'd never been in that role before.
Awesome. Well,
I remember trying to be open-minded and taking all of the notes that Paul and Swin gave us. And we had our rehearsal studio, and we went through basically a notebook of more than suggestions and just cut things down, cut out all the little things that we might have liked that were really just us playing around and learning as musicians. And that was kind of the coolest part is trying to accept that you have to chop out, 3 minutes of a song it's your favorite part, but it's probably not anybody else's favorite part.
Amen.
What's cool to be in the studio.
So Swin, once they kind of come back and you've got to finish up, or it's getting to that finish point, and you and Paul are putting together the marketing plan and how we're going to attack this, was, listening back to it now, Dear Claudia is the no-brainer big hit.
Yeah.
That goes. Was that your original thought that was going to be the song, or was it Driving, or was it one of the other ones?
No, without a doubt, I think we felt Dear Claudia was the single. You just have that song that pops out. And Driving, for what it is, it's a fantastic song. But in terms of radio, right, it was too stark, too acoustic. So I think from the start there was a no-brainer. Even with other songs, great songs like My Sanity and all like that would be personal favorites of mine. I think we all felt Dear Claudia was the song. So, with that, it sort of went into our playbook at the time, which obviously being in Dallas, we're trying to go get the edge behind it. Trying to get stations in Oklahoma and Arkansas, around the region, in knowing that would, sort of draw interest in and everything. So that's sort of what we started doing. And it's like with every artist and every single you go with, it was much harder than we all thought it would be. Right. You're like, this is a great song. Why you didn't hear this all over the radio? Sorry, not for us. Not now. Travis, you know that world well, right?
Oh, sure. I give Dwayne and the Edge credit though, because and we had Dwayne on before, where Dwayne always had a slot on the playlist for an unsigned local band. So no matter who it was at the time, whether it was you guys, whether it was Edgewater, whether it was Miser, Supercell, any of those bands, he always, and we asked him that question. We were like, why? And he goes, because we wanted to connect with local people and we wanted it to feel like a local station. Yeah. And while it may only be one song, it's still your hometown band. Yeah. So
it's interesting because we're all in the industry, right? We were on that industry side of it. I would love to hear sometime just from a general fan, general few fans, what was that like for them? Yeah. What was it like for them to hear Edgewater, to hear Miser, to hear SouthFM, even back in the day, the Nixons and stuff like that on local radio? Was that?
Well, I was prior to SouthFM, hearing those bands on the edge, I get Tripping Daisy, Toadies, Deep Blue, Nixon's, it was unbelievable. Like you were,
and really, it started in the beginning. George Gamark was super local friendly, and then it did translate to Dwayne. Dwayne kept that local vibe through and through, which I'm pretty sure we all wish, those stations have gone away the way they were. It's just not there anymore. But it was fun back in that day because it was normal for a band like SouthFM or any of those others that they're drawing 500 people a show. They're drawing 800 people a show, and man, today that is. You thought it was hard back then, guys. It's like it's like near impossible.
We
don't have that driver of local radio helping local artists.
We came in on the cusp of a Goldilocks period.
Yeah.
of time. Yeah, pretty much.
So, Swin, I've got kind of one more thing for you, and
Sure.
you know, I'm curious too. Is so you get the song on the radio, and whether it's Dallas or Oklahoma or wherever, inevitably people start knocking on your door. People start calling you. All the labels, they want to know what's going on. They want to know, are you selling records? Or are you doing this?
Yeah.
So, are you telling the band what's going on during this time, or are you kind of keeping them up to date on who's calling, what's going on? Kind of walk us through from what, like, when the song was on the record to getting them all the way to signing with MCA and Universal.
Yeah, so we're pretty transparent, always have been. So we're always feeding what's going on, like it or not, to the artist, and sometimes that's hard, right? Because we would tell them the bad news and stuff like that, because what are you hiding it for? It's like if nothing good's happening, then it's not happening. So, we did get label interest, and really we have to hand it to Mark Nathan, right? Who championed us and sort of took us through to MCA and getting signed there. But, for way too many bands, and I've seen it many, many times in my career now, it wasn't a good experience, right? We wanted it. We wanted to chase and get that major label look, but everything that could go wrong went wrong. Like, literally, as we're getting signed, the president of the label gets blown out, right? New people in, no, we don't like this. No, we don't care about this, and everything. So it was tough, but I think what the band probably saw, and what we all have to rely on, is you have to find those champions out there. Mark Nathan, without a doubt, through and through, was a champion of SouthFM and made it happen at MCA through, very hard time. Paul just said MCA was imploding. It was, right? From the president and everything, they were blowing it up, sort of folding it into other labels within the Universal family and stuff. So it was definitely a tough time. One of those things where you're super excited, you got signed, you're getting this record out, and then it kind of just comes out and nothing happens.
Well, this is a great time. We're going to bring in Spencer and Doug now, who were very important to the SouthFM family as well. What's up, guys?
Hey, gentlemen. Enjoying hearing about all the stuff here.
Yeah. So, you guys kind of walk us through a little bit about what you remember about this time as well, Doug. We'll start with you.
Yeah, I'll have to cut myself off because I probably got too much to say, but I intersected with probably 5 of the things that the guys were talking about a little while ago, because I worked at Curtain Club. I was one of the hosts of Acoustic Chaos, and Mike Swinford and I have known each other since 1987.
We went to college together.
Yeah. So we had a lot of that going on. And so when I got into the band, it was kind of an interesting, juxtaposition of all these things. And so for me, it was a really neat experience.
Yeah, I think Doug added a really good element to our lineup. With some old band members, I think he had a connection to some guys in the scene. Plus, it kind of gave us that rock edge we were kind of going for over our other previous guys. So I think adding him in really helped out a lot.
Cool. So let's go back to, one of the bigger shows you guys had here at Curtain Club for your CD release party. What do you guys remember about that show? I remember being there because I was involved with a band called 40%, who was on the bill, and Dusu was on that bill as well. So let's reminisce about that show a little bit and kind of what y'all remember from that.
The biggest thing for me about that show, and this is kind of the overarching thing, like Paco said, me as band mom, is I was doing all the booking. So, because this is prior to management, we were, we had involved with management, but we were still kind of booking our own shows and stuff. And so we weren't drawing much. And so we couldn't really headline yet, which means we weren't going to play last because we couldn't draw enough people. And so to try and get Dusu and 40% to let us play in the middle, first to get them on the show. We were like, we got to get some good bands that, we respect and that kind of gel well with us. But that was a big deal, just to be able to play with Dusu to get 40% to open for us, because usually we were probably opening for them on shows because they were drawing more people at Kern Club. So that's one of the things I remember was that was a really big moment for me because I'd been a Dusu fan for years at that point. And again, we were opening for 40%. So just to squeeze us in the middle of that bill and to be able to play a packed club on a weekend night, on a Saturday night or whatever it was, that was pretty important. And it was like we had a CD out. I mean, we've been in band for 2-3 years at that point in different iterations. So to actually have something that you could hold and sell for the first time ever, it was pretty cool.
Anybody else want to talk about that show?
I wish I did remember things from that show.
There it is. Don't either.
So let's, we'll talk about the national re-release and Swin, you might be able to chime in or guys. So MCA signed you, and was it a let's go re-record some stuff, or was it let's take the CD and get it out as fast as we can?
That one.
It was definitely take it and go as fast as we can. I don't. It makes me think back to the Nixon's days. The guys didn't have this thing where I got a deal and I got to go re-record with my favorite producer, my childhood, and frankly the MCA deal just wasn't one of those kind of deals where it's like, hey, we're going to give you $100,000 to go re-record this album. They're like, no, it's all going into marketing promotion. Let's go. So no, it's like, and that's really the best way to do it. If you've got something going at radio around the country, it's like, why sit and wait? Like, you just go with it. I mean, I can go back to what I think is one of the worst sounding records in history, and that's Collective Soul. And they didn't go re-record. Right. They had massive hits.
I hated those guys.
Record, but it sounds like crap.
Well, I vaguely remember once you guys got signed, and I remember everybody coming in to do an interview with Jesse. If you remember the days of The Edge, you remember Jesse, and it was, awesome. The talk was going to be Dear Claudia is going to be the song of the summer. It's going to be everywhere. It's going to be the biggest hit of the summer. So as you do that, is it immediately let's go get in the van? And I think, Swin, you and Paul were managing Blue October, so you were able to put them on the road with Blue October. Was it immediately quit your day jobs, get in the van, and let's go learn how to tour?
Kind of. I mean, you got to keep in mind, though, there's a long period there, like where Spencer was still involved and Doug had just joined, where we were in a van for a good 6 to 12 months playing small towns in Texas, like Weekend Warriors for tons, while Paul and Swin were working the independent release. So it wasn't like that was anything new. Like, it was just like, oh, more time in a van, and like that was hard work. It was fun,
But it was more time in a better van. And
I was going to say that.
Yeah, we bought a new.
There were a lot of vans.
It was a better van, and it was when you guys went out and opened for Blue October, it was playing to more people.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. You guys releasing A History for Sale with Blue October simultaneously was a big part of us getting, because we were in the Texas market, but being able to tour with Blue October while they were doing their regional release, we got to really hit Oklahoma and all these other surrounding
all the way up into
Louisiana, Nebraska too, Lincoln, and so that was a big part of the initial push of where Drama Kid was going.
I think that 6 months to a year before his release on MCA, though, that was when I was still involved. That was this weekend you go north, this weekend you go west,
right?
You go east, you go south, and that's every weekend. And that Dodge,
that brown Dodge van. Oh, dear.
I drove that thing. I had a thing that happened where my truck got stolen, and I drove that van as my vehicle for a little while.
Do you guys remember on our way out to Lubbock, a rock hit the side of the van, but luckily we had that Rainmakers or Brando Records.
An advertisement on
it. It was CD Street and Bandwear, because I was working for those companies through Swin again.
And it held the advertisement held the
I don't know anything about Bandwear.
It was on the back of the van. It rocked it cracked.
We were driving over the
Head's
River
right
Bridge
there.
next to my head, and the window exploded.
This thing's flopping all the way to Lubbock.
Yeah, these were pre-trailer times, so like they didn't even have the back half of the van. That was all for our equipment.
Remember, we built like a wooden shelf to where all our amps would go under, all the guitars would go up. We would usually bring a lighting guy with us. Nick Cowley would come with us. So we had like 6 people plus all of our equipment in the van, no trailer.
You know what? That is the sign of a real band on tour. That's what I cut my teeth on. It was before long vans, right? I was with 4 other dudes in a short Dodge van, the same thing, and we just had a 2x4 going across the back, just to hold everything.
Any way to get that? So, then we took that trip out to L.A. in a minivan.
Oh, that was a terrible idea.
Yeah,
we made it there. We made it back.
Man.
Yeah.
There for 2 weeks. One day, 2 days of recording.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, yeah, that's a whole can of worms. You don't even want to jump into that. Yeah.
Well, I'm curious, and I like to ask this of all the bands. I mean, when you're going through this, and you know, GI, we'll start with you. I mean, as you look back on this time and the Drama Kids time, give me 1 or 2 of the standout gigs that you really remember. Like it was the rock star moment, or this is the we've made it to the next step moment.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the early days, I think with the lineup here that recorded Drama Kids, I think those initial shows when we got to headline or even co-headline Curtain Club, those were a huge deal because it was the first time you ever actually played in front of double-digit people. Because up until that point, we were just playing to our friends and our family, And so I lump all that together, and then fast forwarding, when we were touring behind Drama Kids with MCA, I mean, there were a lot of shows. Most of the shows we did in Florida and in the Southeast. There were some shows in Alabama and some stuff like that where we would show up. Specifically, I think it was Birmingham.
It was Tuscaloosa that was sold out.
Tuscaloosa. We showed up in Tuscaloosa. I'd never been to Tuscaloosa in my life. I never want to be in Tuscaloosa. But we showed up to a club and it was sold out. Yeah, it was like a sold out show, and they were all there literally to hear 3.5 minutes of Dear Claudia. They didn't know a single other song. I mean, because we hadn't moved a lot of records in that market, but it was all driven by radio. But that doesn't discount it because they were great shows. I mean, it was fun and the audience was great, and it was just a shame that it died out so quickly. We never got to revisit a lot of those cities, but it was fun while it was there,
Paco, what about you?
I think one of my favorite shows that sticks out to me is the day before Edge Fest, the pre-party. And man, it was just, we walk out there and so many people were singing along. It was just a big night. It was all the people, from Dwayne to Jesse, and all the hard work that Brando had done to get the song out there, and them, the Edge championing the song. You saw this payoff, this really beautiful visual payoff that really was amazing. But also, like our run that we did with Blue October, I was falling in love with Blue October at the time and History for Sale. And so that to me was a really amazing time of all those shows that we did with them on their release regionally. And then I think anytime we played Curtain Club, it was just, man, I felt at home there. And every show got to the point where when you play at Curtain Club, whether it was 10 years ago or, 2 years ago, it kind of just starts to all be the same show. And it just has the same feeling every time you get up there. But anyway.
Spencer, what about you?
Man, so I think we played this really great show at the Tea Room. Flynn might remember these bands, Zach Malloy and Evermore. Mm-hmm. We played a damn near sold out. It probably was sold out.
Was that in the big room? That was in the big room, I'm sure.
That was probably back when Zach did his first, solo record. So, he was still coming off, the Nixon strong, and then Evermore was, pretty strong up and coming at the time. I remember that.
I just saw Wilco on their Yankee Hotel Foxtrot tour. in that room. And then later on that summer, we played that, we were on that same stage, and that was a sold out show. And then we get up there, same size crowd. That was an awesome show.
That's
cool.
Yeah.
Chad, your turn.
And you guys stole all of my material. Yeah.
Hey, look, if it's some of those other shows, that's totally fine too.
Hey, there's always a Fat Ted show.
I'm notable. I'm noted for being the name dropper guy in the band anyway, so whatever. I've got all the posters. And all
Room 5.
Shut up. I think one of the coolest ones is when we played in I want to say Jacksonville, and the power went out.
Jacksonville.
Yeah.
The power knocked in the building, and we decided, well, we should just continue. A full crowd of people who knew our music, and we didn't know any of them. So we busted out acoustic guitars and told everybody to shut up, and played. And some of the songs off Drama Kids aren't exactly acoustic friendly. We did it anyway, and it was freaking awesome. And I think that's one of the moments whenever I really felt like we, were getting somewhere. Or, for me, that was one of the coolest parts.
That was a cool show.
If I need a name drop, that show we played with Jewel where we all harassed the shit out of her, that was pretty cool too.
Oh man, you stole my thunder.
Let's segue into you then, Doug.
Legos show.
Yes, I was going to mention the two shows that were back to back. We played with Blue October at Balloon Fest in El Paso, and the next day we had to fly out to Tampa to play Starfest in Tampa, and we literally got shuttled from the airport in Tampa straight to the stage, basically, to walk on and play a giant festival to 20,000 people in Tampa. And they had us in trailers. The bands were in trailers, and we were in a double wide with Jewel on the other side. And we all got, her autograph and everything, and it was really a fun day.
Yeah, and I think we played probably at 1 p.m. that day, and then we had the whole rest of the day.
Drank all day.
Jack around. That's why that's what I remember about that show. Long day.
And they put all the bands all at the same hotel. So afterwards, there was also a blind some kind of conference for blind people, and there was a blind man sitting at the piano, and I remember calling Jewel over to come meet him, and she totally came over and stood there at the piano with the three. It was awesome.
I remember her playing piano. I don't remember the blind people though.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we're coming up towards the end of our hour here. We really appreciate everybody taking the time. Everybody should know by now the reason we're doing this, and the reason we're talking to the guys in SouthFM tonight is the vinyl release for Drama Kids that's available now at DFWLegacySeries.com.
I have a real-time update. We have 25 copies left for sale. So we've sold 75 of the 25. We need to get those other 25 sold. So if you're listening to this, share it. Let some people know. My goal would be to get those sold by the end of this week so we can send this to the press. Because that's
some of you just go buy a second copy. Yeah, hold on to it until Christmas. Give it then. So, but yeah, I mean, DFWLegacySeries.com. The band's going to sign all 100 copies of them. So it'll be a great thing to get. It's going to look really great on blue and white swirled vinyl. DFWLegacySeries.com. So as we kind of close this out, Paco, let's start with you. I mean, the people that kind of made this happen for you guys, what do you got to say to them? Anything you want to close out with?
Oh man, the whole little Deep Ellum area helped out with us. I just thank you for letting us have a chance at making something happen and believing in us and taking the time to give us some feedback, whether we dealt with it well or not, just being able to grow and learn. And I thank you to the Deep Ellum scene. Updates are available. Can you guys hear that?
Yeah, you're fine. You're good.
Big thanks. Where would we be without anybody else? And it was just ourselves. We'd be nowhere.
Spencer?
Yeah, thanks to Swin and Paul and all you guys. I know we put a lot of hard work into that album. So I'm glad 20 years later it's still relevant. we're printing it on vinyl and people are buying it.
Pretty cool.
Hey, Doug,
Man, I'll say this. I always think of this time as really the best time of my life, and so definitely have everybody that's already been mentioned to thank for that. Huge shout outs to Alex Gerst and David Castell, in addition to the other people that have been mentioned and the management and everybody, those two. And then also the great, incredible mixes that we got from Tim Palmer, Chris Lord-Alge. They really stepped up the level of three of those songs, Dear Claudia and two others. But yeah, it was just a terrific time.
Chad?
I just want to thank Paco and Gia for letting me be a part of it. I mean, frankly, we all know I'm a pain, so I've always felt lucky.
Every band has that guy they just sort of drag along.
I am. I write cool parts, but I've always been eternally grateful to you guys, for real, and especially you guys, Paul and Swin, and yeah, awesome experience for me, and I'll always cherish it. So, thank you,
Mr. Sanders. Close out the thank yous with you.
Yeah, this was so. It's funny because a couple months ago, Chad and I started texting a little bit more frequently, during quarantine, and I had started texting with, and I'm in. Paco and I are in touch pretty regularly via text and all that. And I started thinking, man, we should do a roundtable thing in the DFW Legacy Series where we just talk about our experience in SouthFM. Like Doug was saying, I feel the same way. It was the best time of our lives for that, 2, 3, 4 years or whatever. And so to be able to do that, which is what we're doing now, and actually put out a record too, like that wasn't even on the table. That just came about in the last month really. Right before we announced the Dusu record is when I was like, man, we should just do this. And it was very exciting because it was one of those things where I was in control of it and could just run with it, which was amazing. But as far as looking back, I mean, everyone's already mentioned so many people. The people I haven't been mentioned, Sam Paulus, obviously very supportive. Dale Brock, obviously hugely supportive in the scene. Mark Nathan, I think, who was our A&R guy, MCA, was hugely supportive. And looking back on it, he knew the whole thing was going to fall apart. But he was like, I'll give you guys a shot anyways. And he didn't really tell us. We didn't know it was going to fall apart. But looking back on it, thank God he gave us a shot. I mean, he could have just kind of like stayed quiet and not signed another band. We were the last band he signed before he went, before MCA completely folded. And just the fact that he gave us that shot so we could still be here talking about it. Because otherwise, it probably just would have been another local release that would have flown underneath the radar, and who knows if we would ever wrote the next record and recorded the next record. It certainly wouldn't have been the same. So just everyone that supported us, like Paco said, at Curtain Club, the family down there, there's so many names, but that whole family that Doug, you were a part of, from the very beginning supported us just in a heavy way. So that's the people I think about the most. And yeah, I mean, just the fact that we can, like Spencer said, the fact that it's still relevant and people still care in these songs. I just listened to them for the first time in a long time on headphones, and there's some pretty good stuff on this record. Like, I'm pretty proud of it. Like, when I hear some of the parts, I'm like, man, I would have never done that now. But looking back on it, like, it kind of stands up and it's cool to listen to. And it's a moment in time that we captured that I know I'm really proud of, and I think all you guys are too. So I'm just glad we could get together to do this and have a reason to do it, and do it with fans who care, because that's why they're here listening. So it's been just an amazing experience for me.
Are we going to go ahead and do the show now that we talked about it?
Well, as we start to kind of close up here, Swin, I want to say thank you to you and Paul. Obviously with South FM and with all of the other bands that you guys worked, and being on the other side in radio, you guys were awesome to work with. And we knew when y'all brought a band to us, it was a real band. I mean, and you made them available. Again, I wasn't kidding when I said, 98.9% of that local music scene back in the 90s and 2000s was because of you guys. The work that you put into the scene for making Dallas music what it is. I don't know. I don't think we can say the Dallas music scene would have been what it was without you guys and Rainmaker and Brando and 214 Entertainment and all the companies that y'all did. So thank you for that.
Thank you. We loved it. You know, and it's sort of that symbiotic relationship, right? Much like bands feed off the audience in front of them, right? If that audience isn't giving it back to them, they can't step up. So same thing, right? It was the end audience that came to Deep Ellum and supported the bands that fed all of us. Like that's what we lived for doing, right? So it was bringing that music. I wish we had a scene like that in Texas today. It's way different. It was an amazing era, the 90s and into the early 2000s.
And this kind of leads in, hold on, I was going to say, this leads into the last point that I wanted to bring up is one of the people who isn't here with us who helped with this. When GI and I first started this, Tony Edwards came to mind. And anybody who worked in the local scene knew how important Tony was to the local scene. And as GI and I sat at a table at a bar in Corinth and talked about it would be cool, both of us kind of said, man, you know what? I really wish Tony was here because he would be the first person that we bring in to be our promotion guy or to be someone just to help. And so on the back of every single release from the DFW Legacy Series, we have a dedication to Tony. And so, you know, it doesn't feel right with him not being here, and it doesn't feel right not having the music scene without him a part of it, but it's our way to keep him involved. And so anybody, you know, that's important to me. It's important to GI, and I think it's important to every band who, you know, if Tony didn't know your band when he first met you, by the end of the night, he knew your band and he was out trying to get people to come to your next show. So just kind of wanted to end on that point. And, you know, guys, thank you so much for allowing us to invade your personal space here tonight on Wednesday night. And, you know, GI, have you sold any more? Are we down to a 20 or 18 left that we need to sell?
I think there's a couple that have dropped off, but yeah, we're going to do a hard push over the next week, guys. So if you're still listening, share the post and email it and contact some old friends and family who you know liked the band back in the day and put it on their radar. And even if they don't have a record player, it'll look great in the frame. We'll autograph them all. We're giving away these posters too. We got these posters from the original. These are silkscreen posters from the original release and the MCA flats. So we're going to sign these and give them away to 5 people randomly. I may even pull out more than that if I can find some in good shape. So yeah, I just want to get it across the finish line because I want to add to my shelf. That's the whole goal here.
Okay, so what one last thing for me real quick. So let's do a reunion show in 2 years. 2023 will be 30 years for Rainmaker Brando. 30 years. Let's pull everyone who will do it together. You guys, Sugar Bomb, Evermore. Go back and get the Nixons. We get all of them. Let's do the Bomb Factory in 2 years.
Well, I was going to say, Swin Giant are going to call you because Sugar Bomb is a band we wanted to talk about next. So that'll be another.
I was just emailing with Daniel and Les tonight. You should definitely do Bully. What an amazing record. A great one of my favorites.
Well, guys, thank you so much for tonight. Please order the Drama Kids limited edition vinyl from DFW Legacy Series.com. If you're so inclined, pick up Slow Roosevelt, Dusu, Miser, or Edgewater while you're there. And then in the next probably month to 6 weeks, we'll have our next release to announce. And, you know, it's been going great, and it's all thanks to you guys out there buying the records. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
All right. See you guys.
Thank you.